Perched atop a hill in Napa Valley, the Harrington mansion stood like a solitary fortress amidst lush vineyards, its entrance framed by ancient olive trees. From the outside, the grand house symbolized the extraordinary success of James Harrington, a tech genius who had single-handedly built a billion-dollar empire. But within its cold marble walls, a heavy silence lingered, mirroring the somber mood of its owner. Once a symbol of ambition and innovation, James had been featured on the covers of every major tech magazine. However, a private plane crash a year ago changed everything. Although he had survived, James suffered a severe spinal injury that left him paralyzed. His life was now confined to a wheelchair, with relentless pain serving as a constant reminder of what he had lost. From a dynamic and charismatic man, James had become a shadow of his former self. He shut himself away in self-pity, rejecting all help and expending his remaining energy, driving away anyone who tried to approach him. Numerous nurses had come and gone, none able to endure his cold and caustic demeanor. That morning, James sat motionless by the large window in his study, his vacant gaze fixed on the breathtaking hills of Napa Valley. Even the majestic scenery could not soothe the emptiness inside him. A soft knock on the door pulled him out of his thoughts. "Mr. Harrington," the calm voice of Mr. Peterson, his longtime butler, called from the doorway. "The new nurse has arrived. Her name is Elise Carter." Without turning around, James replied coldly, "I don't need a new nurse. Send her away." "Sir, I believe Miss Carter might make a difference. It's time you accepted professional support," Peterson responded patiently, unfazed by James's attitude. "And may I remind you that your doctor has emphasized this is not optional, but a requirement." James let out a heavy sigh, but didn't argue further. Turning his wheelchair around, his eyes darkened. "Fine, bring her in, but don't expect me to do anything else." Within a minute, the door opened and Elise Carter entered. She was a young woman, slender yet exuding an air of confidence. With her neatly tied hair and sharp, determined eyes, Elise seemed unfazed by the cold gaze James directed at her. Her immaculate nurse's uniform radiated professionalism and precision. "Good morning, Mr. Harrington," Elise greeted, her voice warm but firm. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." James remained silent for a few seconds, his eyes scanning Elise with a critical look. "What makes you think you'll be any different from the others?" Elise smiled, unshaken. "I'm not here to argue or convince you, Mr. Harrington. I only hope we can work together to improve your quality of life. But even if you choose not to cooperate, I will still do my job well." Her confidence and calm demeanor took James by surprise. Instead of lashing out as he usually did, he merely smirked. "Let's see how long you last." Elise nodded, unfazed by his hostility. "I'll start setting up the therapy equipment now. We can discuss the plan when you're ready." As Elise left the room to prepare, Peterson approached James with a subtle smile. "I have a feeling she won't give up as easily as the others, sir." James didn't respond, his gaze following Elise's confident stride. Part of him felt irritated, but a long-forgotten part, buried deep beneath layers of bitterness, felt a twinge of curiosity. And so, the fateful encounter between James Harrington and Elise Carter began, marking the start of a journey filled with challenges, transformation, and hope. Welcome to today's story. Let us know in the comments which city you're listening from. You might find someone from the same place tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. James Harrington was not one to easily accept help, especially from Elise Carter, the new nurse who exuded determination and enthusiasm. In the early days, James refused every exercise Elise suggested. Sitting in his wheelchair, his eyes brimming with frustration and bitterness, he constantly ridiculed her efforts. "Do you really think these tiny movements will make me stand and walk again?" Ridiculous. Elise, despite being irritated by James's attitude, maintained her calm tone. "It's not about what I think, it's about what I know, but it will only happen if you're willing to try." James didn't reply, instead turning toward the window where sunlight filtered through the trees, signaling the end of the conversation. Elise knew that James was building an emotional fortress around himself, but she wasn't one to give up easily. Every day she visited him, patiently laying out the therapy plan and persistently encouraging him to participate. She even brought humorous anecdotes to lighten the heavy atmosphere. One day when James completely ignored her, Elise set down the therapy equipment and spoke with a tone of challenge. You can refuse to do these exercises. That's your choice. But don't think I'll give up. You're not the only one who's ever felt this way. Elise shared a deeply personal story about her father, who had been paralyzed on one side after a severe stroke. He rejected everything. He didn't want to see anyone, talk to anyone, or try anything. But little by little, I helped him overcome it. Her voice softened as she continued. I'm not saying this to win you over. I'm telling you because I've seen it happen. People can change if they dare to try. The question isn't whether you can stand, but whether you want to. For the first time, James turned to look at Elise. He didn't say a word, but a flicker of confusion crossed his face, a crack in his otherwise impenetrable armor. Elise's words seemed to strike a chord with James. The next day, he reluctantly agreed to try the therapy sessions. Though she couldn't hide her satisfaction, Elise kept her reaction professional. She guided James through basic exercises, stretching his arms and gently moving his legs. While James was visibly disinterested, he followed her instructions. Each day, Elise pushed James a little further, step by step. After weeks of persistence, James discovered that he could lift his legs slightly without much assistance. Though a small victory, it was his first achievement since the accident. One day, Elise asked James, "What made you start your tech company in the first place?" James's expression softened, tinged with nostalgia. He shared his youthful dream of creating technology that could transform lives. He mentioned an idea he'd once had, developing devices to assist people with disabilities, a dream he had never pursued. Elise's eyes lit up as she smiled and said, "You can still do it. The question isn't whether you can, but whether you'll face the fear of failing." Her words lingered in James's mind, leaving a profound impact. As James gradually progressed physically, external pressures began to mount. His company's shareholders started pushing to replace him, doubting his ability to lead. The media further exacerbated his isolation, labeling him a fallen genius. James felt as though the world was against him. One day, Elise found James sitting in his study, staring blankly at documents for selling his company. Her voice was filled with concern as she asked, "Are you really going to give everything up? Everything you built? Everything you said you wanted? Are you ready to throw it all away?" James snapped, standing up from his wheelchair and leaning against the desk for support. "You don't understand what I'm dealing with? You think you know what's best for me? You know nothing." James's harsh words deeply hurt Elise. She didn't react immediately, but looked at him for a long moment before saying, "Maybe you're right. I don't understand, but I tried, and it seems that doesn't mean anything to you." That day, Elise packed her belongings and left. Before leaving, she placed a short letter on James's desk, which read, "Sometimes true strength isn't about conquering everything, but daring to stand, even if it's just one small step." James found the letter after her departure. He held it in his hands, his heart heavy with regret, pain, and loneliness. The house felt emptier than ever, and James realized the void Elise's absence had created. The silence around him now mirrored the turmoil within. The mansion, once a fortress James Harrington used to shield himself from the world, now felt emptier than ever. Elise's absence left a void that nothing could fill. James missed the days when Elise tirelessly encouraged him to exercise, her voice firm yet laced with humor as she countered his sarcastic remarks. In the days following Elise's departure, James did little more than sit by the window, staring at the garden where Elise had once urged him to step outside. Loneliness and regret slowly ate away at his pride. One evening, James opened a drawer and found the letter Elise had left. He read and reread the final words. "Sometimes true strength isn't about conquering everything, but daring to stand, even if it's just one small step." These words struck a blow to James's pride. He realized he had spent too much time wallowing in bitterness rather than trying to change. Elise had been right. He had never truly attempted to take even a single step forward. One day, Peterson, James's loyal butler, left a newspaper article on his desk. The article detailed James's career accomplishments, from his early entrepreneurial days to building a leading tech empire. What moved James the most wasn't the mentions of his fame or wealth, But the article's closing statement: James Harrington is not just an innovator, but an inspiration, a man who has shown the world that technology can not only change lives, but save them. These words reignited a sense of responsibility within James. He had once believed he could change the world, and now he realized he couldn't abandon that dream. James decided to try again. He returned to the training room, the space where Elise had once patiently guided him, and began anew, this time without anyone by his side. Initially, every movement was an agonizing challenge. The pain from his spinal injury made him want to quit numerous times. But James recalled Elise's words. No one expects you to be perfect. They just need you to try a little more each day. He reminded himself that if Elise believed in him, he had to believe in himself too. After months of relentless training, James reached an important milestone. He managed to stand up from his wheelchair unaided, even if only for a few seconds. That brief moment was enough to reignite hope within him. James continued pushing himself. Over time, he could navigate his wheelchair independently, without assistance. This progress not only improved his physical strength, but also restored his confidence. The physical recovery also brought clarity to James's mind. He no longer saw himself as a victim of circumstances, but began viewing the accident as an opportunity to accomplish something greater. James decided to revisit the dream he had once shared with Elise, developing medical devices to aid rehabilitation. He spent weeks working tirelessly, designing and refining prototypes. He also reached out to former colleagues, sharing his ideas and persuading them to join his cause. James's passion and determination won over even those who had doubted him. James chose to unveil his initiative at a major press conference. Appearing in public for the first time since the accident, James was still in his wheelchair, but his demeanor had transformed entirely. He began his speech by sharing his personal story. A year ago, I thought my life was over. But through it all, I've realized that not everyone has the chance to stand again after a setback, but we can create opportunities to ensure they never face it alone. James introduced his plans to build centers equipped with advanced medical devices, from intelligent walking aids to technologies that assist people with disabilities in their rehabilitation. He emphasized, this project isn't just about me. It's about everyone who has ever thought they had no chance. I want to prove that everyone deserves a second chance. James's story quickly captured public attention. People admired not only his resilience, but also the sincerity behind his project's mission. The press conference ended with a prolonged round of applause. For the first time in months, James felt as though he had rediscovered his purpose in life. One morning, Elise received a package from James Harrington. Inside was a formal letter accompanied by documents detailing the medical device project James was developing. In the letter, James wrote, Elise, this project cannot be completed without you. You helped me regain the strength to stand, and I believe that with your help, we can change many lives. I don't just need a nurse, I need a partner who understands the heart and mind of this project. James Harrington. Elise set the letter down, her heart overwhelmed with emotion. She knew she had left because of the hurt, but now James had changed. She decided to accept his invitation. Elise arrived at the project's office where James was waiting for her. When she entered the meeting room, she saw James skillfully maneuvering his wheelchair without assistance. James, she exclaimed, unable to hide her surprise. James stopped, smiling warmly at her. Elise, thank you for coming. Seeing you here makes everything feel right again. Elise looked at him, both moved and proud. You've come so far since the last time we met. I'm truly happy for you. James nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. I couldn't have done it without you. Every word, every exercise you taught me, it all stayed with me. And I need you to help me complete this project, not just as a nurse, but as a true partner. Elise, touched by James's sincerity, couldn't refuse. All right, she said, I'll help you. From the day Elise returned, they spent most of their time working together at the project center. Elise was responsible for ensuring that the medical devices met patients' needs, while James focused on technological innovations. They often had lively discussions about optimizing designs and treatment processes. During these moments, James saw Elise not only as an excellent collaborator, but also as someone who shared a deep connection with his thoughts and spirit. One time, while reviewing the design of a walking aid, Elise laughed as she watched James meticulously adjust every tiny detail. You used to say you didn't care about minor details, and now here you are, measuring every millimeter, she teased. James smiled warmly, his eyes soft. I've learned from you that sometimes the smallest things make the biggest difference. When work paused, they often spent time talking outside the center. One evening, under the dim glow of garden lights, James and Elise sat together. Elise, James began, his voice deep and sincere, you didn't just help me walk again, you helped me see the meaning of life. Elise looked at James, sensing the truth in his words. James, you did all of this on your own. I only reminded you that you could. James shook his head. No, Elise. You didn't just remind me. You lit the way when I couldn't see anything but darkness. Both began to realize that their relationship went beyond work. Elise felt her heart warm every time James looked at her with trust and admiration. And James, though he didn't say it aloud, knew that Elise was not only his greatest motivation, but also someone he wanted by his side forever. One day, while discussing plans to expand the medical center to a new location, James looked at Elise and said, Elise, this project hasn't just changed the lives of others. It's changed me. And it's all because of you. Elise smiled gently, her heart racing. But she didn't respond immediately, choosing instead to return to work, knowing that both of them needed time to fully understand their feelings. The first medical center established by James and Elise officially opened during a grand inaugural ceremony. The building was modern, accessible, and equipped with cutting-edge rehabilitation devices developed by James and his team. Hundreds of patients and their families attended the event, seeking hope and witnessing James's inspiring story. Elise stood beside James, smiling as she saw the joy in the eyes of those testing the devices for the first time. In his speech, James emotionally stated, "This center is not just a building. It is a reminder that no matter where you are on your journey, there is always hope and people willing to help." The media widely covered the project, praising James's perseverance in overcoming adversity and his dedication to benefiting the community. The center quickly received funding from major organizations, paving the way for the project's expansion. 1 year later, the second medical center was inaugurated in another city. The ceremony was held outdoors in the lush campus of the new center. James, still using a wheelchair, had prepared a special speech to thank everyone. As he finished his address, James unexpectedly set down the microphone and said, "Before concluding this ceremony, I want to share something special with someone very special." Slowly, he stood from his wheelchair, leaning lightly on a support cane. The audience gasped in amazement as James took a few steady steps toward Elise, who was standing at the center of the stage. When he reached her, James knelt down and pulled a ring from his pocket. His voice trembled with emotion as he said, "Elise, my entire life, I've sought solutions to problems. But you are not a problem. You are the answer I didn't know I needed. Will you marry me?" Elise couldn't hold back her tears. Nodding repeatedly, she replied, "Yes, James, I will." Applause and cheers erupted across the stage. In that moment of happiness, James slipped the ring onto Elise's finger, stood up, and embraced her as the audience blessed them with their heartfelt support. A few months later, James and Elise's wedding was held at the new medical center. The venue, adorned with flowers and warm lighting, exuded a blend of simplicity and elegance. The most touching moment was when James walked down the aisle on his own, taking just a few short but powerful steps that brought many guests to tears. Elise waited for him at the end of the aisle, her eyes filled with pride and love. As he took Elise's hand, James softly said, "We've come a long way together, and I can't wait to begin the next chapter with you." They exchanged their vows in the presence of family, friends, and the patients whose lives had been changed by their project. After the wedding, James and Elise continued working tirelessly to expand their initiative. Their medical centers not only provided rehabilitation, but also became hubs for training healthcare professionals, spreading the shared values of humanity and compassion they both upheld. One afternoon, standing on the balcony of the center, James and Elise looked down at the courtyard where patients were using the new equipment. The laughter of children and the first steps of individuals regaining mobility filled the air with joy and hope. James spoke in his deep, warm voice. "Elise, there was a time when I thought my life ended with that accident. but you showed me it was only the beginning." Elise smiled and took his hand. "And we will keep building, not just for others, but for ourselves too." Now married, James and Elise continued to stand side by side, not only as partners in work, but also in life. Their love not only helped them overcome their challenges, but also inspired thousands of others. Looking toward the future, they knew recovery wasn't just physical. It stemmed from love, determination, and an unyielding belief in a brighter tomorrow. The story conveys profound lessons about resilience, love, and compassion. James's determination demonstrates the power within us to overcome life's greatest challenges. Elise's patience and support show how the right companion at the right time can change someone's life. Their love proves that together, two people can conquer anything. Above all, James's decision to use his success to help the community highlights the importance of living a life dedicated to others. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Let us know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. What type of stories would you like to hear next? Don't forget to like, share this story, and subscribe to our channel for more.